talking about for Bluebird is this one of the prettiest songs that you'll hear in the morning. And when you go out and take a look at the paper in the morning or whatever, you often hear these birds singing. They're very pretty. They're thrushes. Here's another one, a wood thrush. It's a thrush family.
Aww.
And that's a wood thrush, another beautiful song. And there's another thrush that you'll hear in the morning too. So they all have that song in common, or similar vocal songs. That's the robin, another thrush.
That's a what?
A robin. So these are all thrushes. And just to clarify things, I know a lot about birds, but I'm not a, what do you call those expert guys? Yeah, I'm not. You can call me an expert. By the way, I have a, anybody else have any grandkids coming to visit? I have an email going out and something, a little sheet of paper at the store called, let's see if we can get this thing working. How would we turn that on? There we go, okay. Called EGADS, the grandkids are coming to visit, what do we do? And so there's a whole list of things that you can pick up at the store for different activities that they'd enjoy. Plus, while you bring them into the store, show them some of the products that we have here, because we can show them the bluebirds. We're so happy. How many people here are raising bluebirds? What? Oh, raising? You have a house for them and everything? Wonderful. I'm proud of you. You have raised last year over 400 baby blues. So we want to see if we can break that record. But in our store, we feed the bluebirds there and we call them in and whistle for them. That's why I'm also called the bird whistler. And we have 5 baby blues that have already hatched, so they're just getting started. Now, so by the way, there's a lot of birds around the world. 10,000 of them. So if you start your list now, and you can see how many you can collect. There's a lot that you can go to South America and get 3,200, Asia 3,000, Africa's got 20. We have North America roughly 1,000 birds that are in our area. Well, not exactly in our area, but you can. In your area, we're going to find out that you've got about 32 backyard birds, of which we're going to talk about that one down in the corner, the bluebird. But there's a lot of fun activity going on in your backyard if you want to start feeding them and watching them. It's a fun hobby. We'll talk a minute about, this is some new ones we just arrived at this. These are, we haven't quite identified them yet, but you don't have to feed them, which is the other nice thing. But we're going to talk about these two guys. Bluebirds are well, that's the male and the female. The difference between the two, many people know that the male is the bright blue bird, and the female's not so bright. Not so colorful. That's a wrong. Sorry. So this is just a picture the other day of we had 3 eggs in the nest. Now they've got 5 babies. So that doesn't take long it takes about, we'll talk about it in a minute. This is how I got to be named the Bird Whistler. If anybody gets the Blue Wall Weekly from the Brooks, the Jocassee Lake tour people send out this neat newsletter about what's going on in the area. Well, Kay came in and bought some bird seed, and I said, come take a look at our bluebirds. So I whistled for them. Fed them mealworms, and they came flying down. So then she put a little notice in her next Blue Wall Weekly calling me the Bird Whistler. So that's how I do that. But you can do the same thing, and it's a lot of fun. If you don't whistle, you can ring a bell. You can say, bluebird, bluebird, bluebirds, and they come down. That's some of the fun things that really, when you go back to all the birds that we have in our area, the bluebird stands out because of a lot of things. One, they stay around. Once they adopt your yard, they'll stay with you. They'll stay all year long. They'll raise their family. They'll come back in the winter. They take a vacation once in a while, but they'll still come into your home. But like goldfinches are beautiful. People love the cardinals. Some of the other birds are really fun, cedar waxwing, but it's sporadic. You don't get to know them personally. The bluebirds really like people, and we like them. And it's fun to observe them because once they adopt your yard, they're going to be staying around and raising their families. So they are very different than other birds. That's why other people have called them the skeleton key that opens up a whole lot of doors. It's kind of the same way with the bluebird. Once you get started with bluebirds, it'll help you to learn more about the rest of the bird world. So there are three types. There's a mountain bluebird out west. There's the western bluebird. And these are the territories roughly that they cover. This being the western bluebird in that area, the mountain bluebird up there, and the eastern bluebird is from the Colorado and the plains area east. So there's a lot of them, but they weren't always that, well, we'll go into that in a second. By the way, these are they're leaving now, but they were at your feeders here for this last 2 or 3 months, dominating. They came down from Cleveland. And, because they like our weather and our food better. So now, but they're going back, but they dominated our feeders and helped keep me in business during the winter because they had to have birdseed for them. So why do we love bluebirds? We talked a little bit about it. What are some of the things that you guys like about your bluebirds that you've seen? Yes?
Love them flapping the male flapping his wings.
Yeah, do you know what that is?
It's affection.
Yeah, and?
Calling the female.
Yeah.
And then I love the way one year.
It's called wing waving. We'll show what it looks like here in a second. I have a slide for that.
And then he's the one that builds the nest. And one year I thought, is he ever going to find a mate? He sat on top of that
house looking for waving his wing all the time.
Yeah, and then he finally, somebody joined him.
Yeah, this is fun to watch them because they're very they're trying to attract mates. And I went out in the driveway the other day and there was about 10 or 15 bluebirds all flittering around and trying to find mates. And, yes.
It's my female that's building the nest, and the male is sitting there egging her on.
She does all the work, you're right. What other things do we like about our bluebirds? Ever watch the male feed the female too when the male works? That's always affectionate too. That's really fun. Yes?
Mine sits inside the hole and like peeks out.
Yep. They're fun to watch.
lot.
Yes?
Well, I just want to say one of the things that is troubling to me about the bluebirds is that the male, he comes to the window and he keeps hitting the window.
Yeah.
Because he thinks he sees
That is one negative thing
reflections.
about it.
And one year, he just kept coming and bashing his face. Before I knew it, I looked at the window and had some blood on it. So he was really desperate. He was desperate.
Anybody know why they're doing that? Yeah.
Territorial. Testosterone is high and they think it's another male
Yeah.
in their territory. What can we do about that?
I've tried putting.
Yeah, you put saran wrap there and cut that reflection down a little bit, but people tell me they have windows all over the place and they're big high windows.
I put newspaper.
And it's an endless process. There's some foam spray or a little dust spray that you can put on there that cuts down the reflection a little bit. Newspaper, yeah.
They're not reflecting, they're hanging on my screens.
They hang on
And they
the,
start, you know, you can
On the
hear them
screen?
twittering on the screen around 7:30 every morning, all the time. They
wait,
don't- it's not-
and pecking?
Well, I guess they're little nails or something,
Oh, funny.
but it's not the window.
All right, that's one disadvantage. We're gonna talk about all the advantages. Doesn't happen to everybody. Well, I don't have, they're not banging into my window fortunately, so. But it can drive some people crazy, you're right. All right, so the other is the song. Where's my bluebird song? We played it once, but it's so beautiful. It's a song that you're gonna hear. It's a bubbly, chortly sound. It's quite different than other birds. So those are some of the reasons we love bluebirds. But they are territorial. They try to drive their competition away. You won't, if you have 2 or 3 bluebird houses up, they're not gonna have 2 bluebirds in the same area. So typically, if one bluebird has this area, you're gonna put another bluebird box on the other side of the house or something like that. So they are territorial. Their songs, their displays, and there's the wing waving you were talking about. It's really kind of cool. And there he is feeding his little. Oh. And it's fun to watch them raise their young. The youngs they're just learning, and it's just like teaching your own kids how to grow up and how to eat and all that. I'll go into that in a minute as well. And it's fun to see, once the babies fledge, they start another family. So they'll have 2 or 3 families, sometimes 4 families a year. So there's a lot of activity. These guys are working really hard. Why do we care? Well, there were a lot of bluebirds around in the early 1900s, but their populations declined a lot. 90% decline between 1920 and 1970, primarily because of cutting down trees. They're cavity nesters. They live in woodpecker holes in trees. So once we start building and cutting down trees, they had less homes to go to. So the loss of habitat, predators, pesticides, and then in the early 70s, a few people, individuals started to set up bluebird trails. And they put bluebird houses out, maybe 15 or 20 or 100, and they'd monitor them and then talk to people about it. And they started to encourage them. And the North American Bluebird Society was formed. And so that bluebird population now is coming back because of what you guys are doing, is raising and attracting bluebirds to your yard. They even have a South Carolina Bluebird Society that you can Google and look up and learn about. We talked about comparing the male and the female. There she is, he's building the nest. He's telling her where to put it. But no, actually it's kind of fun. Watch them, when they're starting to select a house, they do it like real people. The guy goes out and scouts out the neighborhood and figures out which ones she should look at. And then he sits up on the branch and she does the final inspection. She'll go inside, check it out, make sure it's clean. And she'll select the final home. They're cavity nesters. There are primary cavity nesters, which are woodpeckers. Primarily, they make the hole and make a home in there. They're also looking for insects. But then the secondary nesters, which is what bluebirds are, and there's a number of others, they go into woodpecker holes. Now, and we're lucky to have bluebirds in our area because they stay here all year round. Up north, oftentimes, many of them migrate down here because it's warmer. They'll stay up there, but not many of them do that. But, all right, now how do you attract bluebirds to your yard? So you kind of have to think like a bluebird. So you've got to put your thinking cap on. And if you were a bluebird, would you come to your yard? So what's going to motivate a bluebird to come to your yard? Food.
Water, trees.
What kind of food do we want? Mealworms, and they like insects. So don't put insecticides out in the yard. They like berries.
They like, we have suet, they love,
The
my
suet,
husband's homemade suet.
Yep. So that the good food, and mealworms you can do dried or live. The lives are more nourishing. She's already reading and cheating on all. I've got the tips right there.
I have questions.
So what other, we've got food, that'll attract them. What other things? Water. Now, somebody says, oh, I got the lake.
That's what I was thinking.
But they like shallow water, not deep water. So they like to walk in there and bathe in there. So the shallow water from a bird bath is much better than thinking they're gonna go down to the lake and take a swim. It's not all that often. You won't see many birds. You'll see great blue herons in there, but not many small birds. Yep.
Don't they like to face north? Their birdhouse east.
I don't care what they like. I like it so the bird house.
I can see it.
Yes, so you can see it.
Right, you can walk.
They don't know that. They don't know where north is. I mean, you're right. There are some literature out there that says face east or away from the breeze. No, face it so you can watch them. Now, when they're ready to fledge and they're going to leave, point it out towards a bush, so that they're going to have some protection, so they're not falling on the ground and have some kind of bird pick them up or something else. So, but anyway, it's a selfish thing. If you want to watch your bluebirds, aim it so that you can look at it. All right, so we have water and food. How else? Why else are they going to come to your yard? What?
The shelter.
Oh, shelter. Yeah, place to live. We've got a number of people that do feed bluebirds, but they're in their neighbor's yard. Well, that's okay, but you're missing half the fun, and that is the raising of the kids and watching them come back and forth to eat mealworms and things like that. So yeah, a house, and shelter is also gardening for the birds. It's giving them bushes to be in, berry bushes to eat berries out of, and it's also protection, baffle. We'll go into that in a minute, but those are some of the things that, so we have to think like a bluebird. We're doing that. Open space. Now you're going to see some of the things that we were just talking about. Where open space, we don't have any open space in Kiwiki. So I mean, everything's forest. So don't worry. And these bluebirds are around all over the place. So it doesn't have to be out on a golf course, and it doesn't have to be on an open. They like it an open space because it's primarily for insects, and they like to go down and eat the bugs. But not all that critical around here. Tolerant of human activities. They really are, we can stand from here to there and watch the bluebirds come in and eat mealworms. So they're very open to people around. Some people have gotten good enough to be patient enough to have them eat out of their hand, which is exciting. I haven't gotten that way. High traffic area, they're fine. If anybody's been by our store and next to our drag strip, with people driving by at 90 miles an hour, they're still very tolerant of birds, of traffic. What do they eat? We talked about 70% of the time they're eating insects, mealworms, and the other 30% or so are berries. These are some of the things that you've got to be concerned about, the pests. And this is one of the nicest ones. It's a nice furry cat, but stray cats that look beautiful like this also eat a lot of bluebirds, a lot of birds. So keep your birds away from furry. We sell these at the store, by the way. Christmas is only 7 months away, so you might want to think about the grand. So these are some of the suggestions that they have here, and I'm going to have to rewrite them. It says, like you were talking about, face your nesting box in an open area. This slide came from South Carolina Bluebird Society, and I borrowed it, and I don't agree with it. So, and none of our customers do. So you can face the bluebird box so that you get to see it. It's okay. And a predator baffle is important, like this. And a monitor, check them out once a week. Some people ask, can I look at them? I said, yes. They're very people friendly. In fact, I looked last night at our porch at the house, and there I could see the mother was sitting on the eggs. Close the door. They don't mind.
Where does it open?
How's it open? Right here.
Oh.
So you can check to see, one, if they built the nest.
Yes, and they have some that have glass, have a
Some that has
glass
glass
thing
in.
that you can pull it down, there's the glass.
Yeah.
You can
So,
see it in the-
and then you can tip it down to check to see if there's eggs in there, if they got babies. Monitor once a week. Use caution when they're about to fledge, and I'll go through the sequence in a second, but in the last 3 days before they're ready to fledge, you don't want to scare them off early, so leave them alone, so that when they fly, they're ready to fledge. And then after they leave, it's okay to clean it out and get the stuff out of there, because they'll start another family right away. How long from egg to flight? 2 weeks and 2 weeks is a good rule of thumb. So the eggs, once the eggs are, you usually get 5 eggs, 4 or 5 eggs. They usually hatch all the same time, even though they were laid a day apart. So they, 1 egg, next egg, another egg, next egg, another. In 2 weeks, they'll be ready to hatch. So 2 weeks, ready to hatch. And in another 2 weeks, they'll be ready to leave the nest. Yep.
If there are no houses available, what kind of a nest do they build and where do they build them?
They find a tree with a hole in it, or your neighbor's third house.
Oh.
Yeah, it's usually, they don't nest, robins nest in trees, cardinals build a nest in a tree, but the bluebirds don't. They need a cavity. So that's why they like woodpecker holes. And that's, yeah, yep.
My bluebird, I had 3 eggs in my bluebird box,
Yeah.
and then I saw an egg shell
Oh.
on the ground. But I still have 2 eggs in there. Does that mean something got in and got them,
Yeah.
or one hatched? and flew?
Yeah, in this Bluebird book, we'll go over it, or I have some at the store or whatever. It gives a list of problems that they have. The face, one of them is the pecked holes in the egg. Chances are the house sparrow is the bad guy. Tree sparrow, well, house sparrow, the bad guy. And they go in and try to drive them away, and they eat the eggs and make a mess. But there's a whole list of problems and solutions in this booklet that will help you with. So, we covered that. Can you imagine that first leaving the nest for the first bird, and he spent 2 weeks looking at the world that way, and then realizing that he's big enough now, he's got to get out and somehow learn to fly right away? That's kind of a scary feeling. And by the way, they're still looking, some are looking for houses. A lot of them have nested, but I think there's lots of time you can build your own house and attract them into your yard. They're also building their nests now. Some of the things that we talk about for best practices for landlords: don't use toxic insecticides. They like bugs. We talked about that. They love mealworms. This is off our back porch. Well, that's at the store. I was feeding them mealworms there. They love suet, as we were talking about. And this is what happens when your bluebirds don't get any mealworms. They start to get mad at you and huffy. And by the way, if you get your yard in shape, and many of you probably already have, and we're encouraging people to start their own wildlife habitat. You can get certified by South Carolina Wildlife Society or the National Wildlife Federation, and get your own sign that says we qualify as a, well, and this, by the way, is nice, because once the bluebirds see that sign, it makes it very easy. Best practices. Nesting box, forget it. Just a nesting, I have it on the porch. It doesn't have to be out in the wild or anything else. We have several customers that have their bluebird boxes on their porch, so they get to watch. What's that?
Just sitting on the porch, or?
Yeah, it's on the porch, just like this.
Oh, okay, I got it.
It's got it on
Yeah.
hold.
We have another one that's hanging it from an eave on his porch, and they come to that every year. So don't put it on a tree. It's not a good idea, because everything can curl up in there and start eating a hole in it. So don't put them on a tree. Have a baffle. Oh, and it's a 1 inch. You need a special, they like a 1.5 inch hole here. One to keep bigger birds out, and then they can get in and out, usually and mounted on a pole. They love water, we talked about that, yeah.
On that, in that picture just now?
Yeah,
The birdhouse on the left,
Yeah.
does it have a perch outside the hole?
this is just a, make it harder for critters to get, you mean this?
Yeah.
That's just
Oh,
kind of
this
a.
just comes out,
Yeah.
so they don't like a perch, they don't like a little stick.
Theoretically not.
Okay,
Yeah, you don't need a perch in there.
huh,
And it discourages other birds from coming to it too.
okay.
They like water. You don't want snakes, you don't want cats, you want raccoons. So baffle's important, we talked about that. That's that other bad guy, the house sparrow. We got them from England and they invaded the whole country. And they're not native to the US, so you can pull them out, you can even get rid of them. But they're nasty little things. There's a little, you ought to see the little babies, they're fun to watch with their little beaks when you open it up and they're a few days old, all 5 of them will sit there when they're thinking you're gonna feed them mealworms. They'll start to talk. There they are, about 6 days old with the feathers starting to come out. There's a flock of them. I don't know whether that's 5 or 10, but a lot of birds. That's 10 birds. Looks like there's more than 5. They're 12 days, they got feathers, 14 days, that's 2 weeks, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left, and they're about ready to, now we got 2 left in 16 days. So some of them are left, and that's what they look like. Fuzzy. They're all speckly in the tummy. They're not ready to, next year they'll be ready to start their own family. That's what a group of them will look like. Now, it's funny to watch them learn to eat. So once they fledge, they'll usually go up into a tree around the area. Now, you don't know where they are, because you may not have seen them leave, but if you keep putting mealworms out there, Dad and Mom will pick up the mealworms and they'll fly up into the trees. If you put your binoculars up, you can kind of see that the birds are lined up there. So that's during the first week. The next week or so, you'll start to see the babies down at the feeding tray, because they're coming down here to get the mealworms, and they can fly better now. And they'll sit there with their mouth like this, and the parents will feed them. And guess what? A few days later, they sit there like this, and the daddy goes, no, no, no. You get your own. So they start to learn their own, to eat their own mealworms. So they're learning the facts of life. So that's our bluebird. We did this presentation, and I've had several iterations of what an ideal bluebird setup is like. And so we created this setup like this with the people that make our birdhouse now make it look like a cavity nest, a cavity hole from a woodpecker. He's put the tree on the outside to make it look as natural as possible. It's on a pole. You put the mealworms here, and that attracts them right away. And then they see that, and then they say, whoa, a nice place to live, too. Couldn't be better than, oh, and water, too. This is like a perfect home. So we call that the Bluebird Bed and Breakfast. And it has protection in it. So it's got kind of everything all at once. Yeah?
Is there any of the Bluebird food on there that is a favorite of anything else we don't want, like bears and deer?
Yeah, that's another interesting thing. Some people have problems with bears. I've never had a problem with our area, but anyway, and they stopped feeding birds in the summer because there's bears walking around. Well, this is a good alternative because you're not feeding them birdseed all over the place, which attracts them, and I don't think they eat that much of mealworms, and by the time the mealworms are out here, they're gone anyway, because the bluebirds eat them. And they don't eat bluebirds, so I haven't seen it on their diet. So I think it's a fun hobby, an alternative to having to take your bird feeders in because the bears are around. Yeah,
How does rain affect the feeding trough?
it's got holes in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, every so often you might have to clean it, take a rag and clean it, but it's got holes in it. Yeah. Yeah. But-
Does anybody else like mealworms?
Oh, that was the other question.
Uncle Martin.
Yeah, that, one is, usually they're gone pretty quickly because the bluebirds eat them, and they see them. They can spot a live mealworm 50 yards away, so half a football field. But you'll see, Mockingbird comes to my feeder. He's oftentimes the first in line when I call him in, and he'll eat a few. You'll see a yellow warbler comes in once in a while, and a Carolina wren once in a while. But most of the others don't. Yeah.
I have a feeder by my kitchen window, which is, the window's probably, I'm guessing, 6 feet.
Mhm.
Okay, and so I have a feeder there, and I'll take it down soon for the hummingbirds. I'll put a hummingbird feeder. If I have my feeder here, could I put a box for the bluebirds by it, so I could still see them out my kitchen window?
Yeah.
It's
I don't have
okay
it
to
far
have
away.
it that close?
I have a bunch of feeders hanging out here, and that's about where my bluebird house is, so it's okay. The other birds don't bother them. You want that up, even if the squirrel gets around, you see the bluebirds dive bomb the squirrels anyway. It's kind of fun to watch that. So, yeah.
I want to know, what is a mealworm and why can't they go get their own?
I didn't bring them with me.
I've seen them. I know they're little brown things, but where do they come from and why can't they?
My
find
store.
them?
We have live ones and dried ones. No, they're larvae. They're not real worms. It's not like they're crawling around in the ground. They do like insects. So they are insects, it's just a different portions, different shape of the insect.
So do we just get them, do people just get them out in the forest? Or where do they get them?
Well, they get them shipped in, and they get them, buy them at a store.
But they're from,
They're not natural. They have,
oh, they're,
they grow their own, and they have a whole process, a mealworm farm.
oh, okay.
Strange business.
Yeah.
Yes?
My bluebirds, they love bark butter.
And what?
They love peanut butter
Yeah.
mix.
They
They
do.
love that.
Yep, and that works out well. You can get bark butter. Sometime at our store, Wild Birds Unlimited sells those. Yep, and it's kind of like suet. And this suet that we have here has suet in it and a mixture of mealworms, which they like.
Well, I started making my own.
You could do that too. Yep.
Easy to make.
So that's our Bluebird Bed and Breakfast. Here they are set up on some porches, so you don't have to put them out into the forest or the woods. That's up in the reserve. She put it up, and immediately the birds started to come to it. She had a woodpecker in there as well, eating the suet. And these are some really nice pictures of bluebirds that are to share with you. I didn't take them, obviously, but they're really pretty.
Oh.
Dive bomb.
But Terry, don't they
Yes.
also, your Bluebird house has to be a certain style. It's not a normal songbird type.
Yeah, the bluebird box has to have ventilation in it, drainage for holes for the rain. A slanted roof kind of helps, and it definitely helps to have a door that opens. There are others that open from the side, so that you can clean it out easily and check on the birds. And about that size, yeah. And the hole size is important. You don't want to have too small a hole or they'll never go into it. So these are some more nice, fun pictures of bluebirds. That one's my favorite. And here's some of the resources. Our store Facebook page, we have a Facebook page for the Birds and More. Facebook. And you can post pictures on there, and we would love to have your bluebird pictures, but every month we give out a bucket of bird seed. We draw a picture out of the group and award a prize. So post your pictures on our website. We'd love to have them, and ask questions too. North American Bluebird Society, NABS.org is a good one. Cialis.org is another website for bluebirds. South Carolina Blue. Oh, and then also, when you, this is more than a coffee table book. Absolutely gorgeous book on bluebirds. With photographs and also a lot of detail about bluebirds in here. So this is a fun book to get as well.
That's at your store also.
Yep, yep. I think, so we want to help you attract more bluebirds to your yard. You've got a gift certificate in there because you are a seminar survivor. You get a 10% discount on anything you want to come in one time, not forever. Sometime by the end of the month if you want to come in and buy some stuff. So that's it. So I think it'd be fun if you got together in a month or two and just kept score about how many bluebirds you're doing, and maybe mention it at the next meeting, and keep a progress report on your bluebird progress. And any interesting stories that you want to share with each other. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.